One of the clearest signs for whether you are in a mode of learning and authentically communicating with people and taking in new information, or whether you're in a tribal mindset, is the lack of uncertainty. So when you're speaking and incapable of openly admitting what you don't know, incapable of openly admitting what would change your mind on an issue, incapable of putting aside three different interpretations that equally are valid for you, and it kind of feels like all of them are pulling you towards them and all have a point, but they are still mutually exclusive. And if you can't point these three positions out at the same time and admit all of them sound true at the same time, but I'm unhappy with all of them, yet I have to pick one. If you can't admit that, it's very, very likely you're thinking in a tribal fashion. And this comes together with how our minds work in general. Karl Popper made a distinction between the context of discovery, at least I think it was Popper, between the context of discovery and the context of justification. Before you come up with ideas that you defend in front of other people, you have to actually come up with those ideas, right? You have to actually learn, you have to develop, you have to come up with new ways of thinking about things. That's the context of discovery. And a huge part of the context of discovery is not really following a very strict and clear procedure. It's not like you have 10 rules and you apply those 10 rules, and whenever you apply those 10 rules, you'll learn something. That's not how it goes. A lot of it is just messy. It's just all infused with intuition in the sense of where you should go next, subjectively choosing where you should go next. None of that is well structured. A lot of that is a highly vulnerable process. So it's basically first draft thinking. You make one draft of an idea, then you throw it away. You make a next draft of an idea, and then you throw it away. Then you combine ideas. You go back to something that you thought a while back. This process itself is very, very different from the context of justification. So once you've come up with an idea, something that you think is solid, you've tested it from several different perspectives, you present it to other people. And when you present it to other people, for it to be consequential, you kind of have to present it in imperative form. You have to say this is the way it is. You have to have tested it already. So you kind of have to use criteria of objectivity to really be able to make a good point. So you have to prove to other people that that's something really worth picking up. Both contexts are entirely different, and it's something that you see in basically all areas, I think, of human creativity. I've heard of opera singers, for example. I can't remember the specific name of the singer. She was so afraid of being heard practice that she basically never did it in public. So whenever she had to perform somewhere, she had to pick out the room that was so hidden that nobody could hear her practice. But because the practicing process is exactly the context of discovery. That's the process where you're vulnerable, where you're making mistakes. This is the process when you read a book and you make your annotations. This is low stakes writing, right? You just come up with, jot up some kind of association that you have, some kind of loose idea, and then you throw it away. But that's the starting point. This is how you develop your thinking. This is how you make meaningful connections. And the presentation mode, on the other hand, and opera, I think, is a very good example for this, because you're not just performing something, you're not just showing something, but you're showing something that supposedly is perfect, right? You have this aura of perfection all around you, right? Or this aura of being untouchable, of being so beyond and above the world that nobody else can reach you, right? And this is something represented by the diva, yeah, this being untouchable, standing above the world. And both contexts are incommensurable. You can't have both. Imagine if the diva stood there and made a mistake, or said, "Oh, I'm not sure whether I should do it in this way, or I should sing it in a different." Well, imagine she's sung a phrase, and everybody has goosebumps, and she goes, "No, I didn't like that. Let's try again. Let's do it in a different fashion." The moment you do that, you ruin your aura, right? The moment you do that, people stop believing in you, and people don't get the specific emotion that they want to get out of you, which is, I don't know how to describe it, but it's very unique. It's a very unique sense of you being down here and the speaker being up there, right? And there is a sense of idealization of the speaker. and you're willing to bow down. You're really willing to submit to the presence of the higher, the transcendent that is up there and pulling you. And this is a deeply tribal experience, I believe. Something we can experience not only in art, but I think in science as well. When somebody's presenting in a specific way certain ideas, they really feel otherworldly. They don't feel like someone who's having just an opinion, but they feel like someone you want to follow. And that's different. It's different when you have this follow relationship and this willingness to submit. That's very different. It feels just very, very different. And I've been always wondering why people in authority positions never do that, right? Why they never switch into the context of discovery mode and admit of mistakes, admit of multiple meanings being involved, admit of uncertainties. And I figured out in the course of time that if they did, people wouldn't take them seriously, because this is a different mode of presentation. This is a different mode of engaging with people. And what people expect in certain contexts is being led. They expect the goosebumps of feeling like there is something transcendent towards which they can orient themselves and being led by it. And this is very different from the context in which you develop your thinking and you create associations and you create drafts and yada, yada, yada. And for a long time, I couldn't understand how both are important and how you can't have social impact for whatever reason. I mean, maybe humanity will change and people will become more rational in the future, and they will find intuitively more attractive the positions which are much more self-reflective, which are much more admitting of their own boundaries, misunderstandings, and so on. But for the time being, the reality of it is that you can't have social influence if you present yourself exclusively from the mode of discovery, right? If you speak openly about how you came up with an idea and how you have your own doubts about an idea and how it's limited and how it doesn't work in all contexts, everything that's usually good within a scientific context, right, when you contextualize ideas, is actually bad within a leadership context. That's not the stuff that people want to hear. People want to hear one thing, what to do, and they want to have a felt sense that you stand beyond things and you grasp things and you understand all things. And if you can't give them that feeling, they won't. They just won't take you seriously. And it's a very, very difficult situation for us to be in as a humanity, because you have this divergence. Social phenomena and social entities like groups are mostly formed around people who can present ideas with a sense of certainty and a sense of absolutism and clarity and black-white thinking. While on the other hand, we know that good ideas are never of that way, are never of that kind. They're always multivalent. They have always limits, boundaries. They're always contextual. They work within one context and they don't work within another context. So it seems like our social identities are always geared towards stupidity and having and searching out certain emotions that you won't get when you are constantly self-doubting, self-questioning, and putting things into context. Both are at conflict with each other. And this is something that we can see on a big societal level happening right now. The result of which is that our thinking is, even when we're engaging with each other and people are trying really hard to bridge the gap between ideological positions, and they get together and try to work and talk together, the result is not understanding. The result is not getting closer to each other, but it feels like it's further pulling us apart. Even when people really try hard to talk to each other and spend time together, it is as if the tribal mind itself has a different form of dynamic, which does not allow you to bridge ideological camps and confines. And as Schmachtenberger once put it, in this context, in the social context, in the context of social entities, those which are extractive always win wars. So you are at a competitive disadvantage if you are taking too many externalities into account, right? If you're contextualizing your thinking too much, if you're, in other words, too smart, you are at a competitive advantage, and you will lose out to those who are relatively stubborn and relatively stupid about doing their own thing. And this is, I think, something that we can see about many authoritarian movements. If you look at the individuals who actually moved those movements, and if you look at the processes itself, it was not that they were the uber geniuses, they were super smart and so beyond everything, but oftentimes it was the opposite. They were street smart and in many regards extremely stupid. If you look at how communism and socialism was actually enacted here in the Balkans, a lot of the leadership was actually not super smart, but they were following extremely banal patterns, which were immensely effective on a social level. And that's what we find ourselves in currently. For something to be socially relevant, it has to be stupid, and the most stupid almost, and the most fanatic, the most black and white thinking has the upper hand. It has the competitive advantage when it comes to social phenomena. And this is very, very, very frustrating to watch. And I wouldn't know how to revert that and how to create incentive structures where actually would force people to contextualize themselves more and would reward self-contextualization. It's currently the opposite.